Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Tuesday, September 3rd here. So I want to start off by saying this. Like, I don't care what other people believe. For the most part, I mean, whatever, you have to, some part of you is concerned, right? Like, our beliefs affect each other, and our collective beliefs manifest the world the way it is now. So what other people believe matters, and it matters to me, and it matters to everything. So I don't want to say I don't care completely. I think the more appropriate way of saying it is I know I can't control it. And that's an issue that most people, it's a realization that most people can't deal with, right? Because most people struggle with the inability to control other people's beliefs and actions, right? Now, sometimes you have to control other people's actions, especially if it has to do with something with you. If somebody's like physically threatening you or whatever it is, right? Somebody's murderous, somebody's going to pollute the poison people, whatever it is, right? There's behaviors that those individuals and a society we can't allow to happen because it threatens the whole, right? There's beliefs out there that lead to these behaviors, and so that's also something you have to be wary about. But for the majority of stuff, like I call these people the controllers that can try to control everything, there's an extraordinary amount of time, effort, money, and lies, deceptions that go into controlling and managing everybody, right? Like it's trying to control other people's beliefs and influencing them and lying to them and manipulating them. And people do it in their own lives, trying to force their beliefs using leverage and, power they have over other people to force beliefs on them. Even if the person doesn't believe what you believe, just getting them to knuckle under and forcing them to agree with, pretend that, that they agree with you, right? Like there was a video I watched some time ago, and there was a rebellion of the people in Alabama who, like, there was many like white people who had servants who were black, right? I'm not sure if it was slaves or just servants. And there was some kind of an uprising and demonstrations, and the white people were hurt because they thought the black people, like they were part of their family, the servants, and couldn't believe that they held resentment against them, right? And I mean, there's stuff like that all the time where, somebody lords over another person and they get the person to agree with them, right? But they don't really agree with them. But the person doesn't give that other person any space to express that disagreement, right? And so, I've accepted that. Like I've accepted that, I mean, even my personal life and my kids and, people in the meditation that I do who believe things about me that aren't true, like bad things and, mischaracterize me, whatever. People do that here. And I'm okay with it. Like people are going to, you can't control it. You can't convince people. And so you just have to, accept it and some ways embrace it. Just be grateful for it or whatever it is. Like it's just something there. Critics is one of the things that helps someone be spiritual. So, there's ill it, kill it, and zill it, a little poor health, a little less money than you need, and critics. And those all help to mold you into a spiritual person, right? In the Sajmark meditation. So, just embracing miseries is divine blessing and things, something that's not desirable, but, you can't control it. And so it can just make you miserable if you push back and try to, right? And so, there's I was, I have a master's degree in counseling. I've told this story quite a bit. And we had like free counseling for people to come in, when we were close to graduating, right? We had to do a year of an internship and we were learning to be counselors. And they offered free counseling to people who came into the college. And I had a couple. And I could tell the wife was the one who it was a young couple. They were in their 20s, 25. And she was just miserable. You could tell, right? And the husband comes in, immediately starts saying, there's not any real problems, and we kind of really don't even need therapy, just we need a little tweaking, like whatever. And I could see the wife did not agree with that at all. And so at some point, like he was doing most of the talking, And I said, all right, like in terms of the quality of your marriage, what is it on a scale of 1 to 10? And he goes, it's an 8. And she says it's a 2. And he freaks the F out. Like he's just a 2? What do you mean a 2? How could it be a 2? And he's just like, a moment of reality because he didn't even know how bad it was for her. And me saying, me doing that, saying that was just, it was kind of a I don't want to say brilliant thing on my part, but it brought into reality how badly she felt about it, right? And, they only had a couple sessions with me. I don't know what came out of it, but like she clearly was over him and the whole thing, whatever was going on there. And he was oblivious to it, right? Because he had walled it off. He wouldn't allow, her reality and her, there was no space for her to express her position, and maybe she's depressed. I mean, who knows what's going, like I can't attribute blame, but he was way happier with the marriage than she was. And so, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, where people don't allow the beliefs of other people to be expressed to them because they can't handle it, right? And the actions, of course, is even worse, the actions of other people. And so, in America, it's about trying to control the other side by winning the presidency or something or the government, and then imposing your beliefs on the other side because the beliefs are so different, right? Between the Democrats and the Republicans. But none of it matters. Like, none of it frickin' matters. Like, you've gotten all worked up, and most of your beliefs are horse crap. They're just, based in the illusion that you're being presented. And, I'm aware of that with people. And so I know that the people who watch my videos, many of you, you think Trump is better than Kamala or something like that. And you're not hearing what I'm saying here, and that's fine. Like, I don't care. That's, it's not for me to control how you receive what I'm saying or how you believe in it. And I think the majority of you believe that there's still some hope for America to turn it around. And, that's also whatever. That's up to you, right? And I hope you're right, for my sake and everybody else's sake in terms of our material lives. But, like, in terms of our spiritual lives, I hope you're wrong because in the future of our children, because look at the way we're going. I mean, if you see the way the kids are today, and they're not having anything like our experience of, of life, American life. I mean, globally, the kids that are growing up now have a completely different experience, and it's not better. And they are much worse. They're weaker, and each generation gets worse. And so why do we want this system to continue? Like, it's obviously making us worse. It's like, we're smoking crack, right? Like generational, crack. And we're going farther and farther into the addiction and the dependence on this system. And it's making us worse. Like we're all, turning into golems. We're all, my precious, we're all, we're turning into some abomination of what we could be or what we would have been years ago and all these things. The system is making us worse, and then we're making the system worse. And it's just going down that road. And so how much longer you want this thing to go on, right? Like, it isn't going to turn around because Trump gets elected. Like, what are you serious? Like, how is it going to turn that around? Like, how could anybody? You already saw Trump presidency. He didn't do anything. Trump didn't do shit, right? Trump didn't change anything. He didn't make America great again. It's impossible. And America wasn't great for all people. We live in a system that's, it's an evil empire, which I've already done some of this video I talk about coming up to do with some of this other stuff, right? With the American patriotism. We're not being honest about, how our country treats other countries and other people. And so our country is not a good country for the rest of the world, right? The rest of the world suffers because of our country, our empire, right? We have an empire. And so, like I said, if people can't deal with that, like that, that painful realization that we have an evil empire, it's not good, and it's getting worse, and it's hurting other people and the environment and all these things, that's on them, right? I can't, But when you look at the two candidates, right, and, there's this idea that one candidate's so much better than the other. For Trumpers, it's Trump, and for, people who hate Trump, it's Kamala. And they're clearly low-functioning people. They're very narcissistic, very remedial in their thought process. neither one of us a genius. No, neither one of us impressive. Like there's nothing going on there, and they just keep on getting worse. And the vice presidential candidates, and you see all these politicians, and like some of them, like I mean, get into like Fetterman and some of these other people, like they're not even competent. Like they're drooling on themselves. They can't even, I mean, they can't even do any. Like they couldn't bag groceries, right? And you expect them to, be a part of the federal government, and it's, the dumbing down and the degradation of the human system. And you see people, you're like, how is this person even surviving? Like, how is this person able to hold a job? With so many emotional, psychological issues, so many incompetent people, so oblivious, their consciousness. I mean, these young kids, they can't even hold a job at Wendy's for 4 hours a day, right? Or whatever it is, right? Like they can't even do like the most remedial jobs, and it's getting worse. And the kids after that, what's going to be like in the next generation? And so, like, how is this going to be pulled out? Like, how do you think? I mean, it's the people that are going to solve the problem, and the people are completely degraded, right? In our generation, my generation, I'm Generation X on the cusp, but of course the boomers and the generation before that, the Trump and Biden are a part of. And, it's just been a downward spiral in terms of people's work ethic, people's, commitment to family, commitment to, connecting to God. And, I mean, religion's always sucked. So it's like, religion's always been like kind of a negative in terms of, withholding the true essence of your spiritual life, which is, finding the divinity within you. But it's, better than what is happening now. Like people going to church when I grew up is better than whatever the fuck's going on now with this generation, right? And their belief in God. And the family, is completely, I mean, how do you fix all this stuff? Because some of it's just, social, and these kids have been, all this stuff, the gender stuff, the BS, the liberal crap that they're getting, like all the stuff that's happened, the degradation of the just what life's about, and the addiction to the internet. All these kids are addicted to the internet, and they're getting programmed by the internet, right? And so, how do you turn any of that around? Like, how do there's a $250 of debt. Like, what's the economic plan? Neither one of them talks about the national debt. And they can't, because there's no way, if they brought it up and people saw the numbers and they talked about it, people like, that isn't going to work. Like, if they told you the solution, there is no solution. So anything they told you would sound stupid. Like, how are you going to come up with, 30, by the time like $40 trillion in national debt and $100 million and $100 trillion in, everybody's collective debt, and then the unfunded liabilities of Social Security, which is like at 25 trillion, and Medicaid that's like 35 trillion, unfunded liabilities. These are things that America has to pay for, and we don't have a fucking clue how to do that. Like there's no plan to pay for it. The Social Security money you're paying in is going to the boomer generation, which is, I mean, the baby boomers. There's a large amount of them, and, that's going to kill Social Security because all the money will be gone. Any money that's in the fund is gone. Like there's no investment. There's nothing you can do to save any of that, right? And so we're completely fucked. Like there's no, I mean, any way you look at it, morally and spiritually, oh, we're fucked. In terms of people's personalities and their psychological makeup and their ability to function, oh, we're fucked, right? In terms of our food, all this poison in our food, all the chemicals, the toxins, the way that we do agriculture now, the water, everything that we're consuming, the air, oh, we're fucked, right? In terms of politics and, I mean, like you just go down the line, right? I mean, it's just on every level where like there's no solution to the problem, and we're not even admitting to the problem. And so, how are we going to solve a problem that we're not even saying? We're like that husband saying, "Oh, it's an aid." Well, I got the internet, I'm pretty happy. There's food at the grocery store, things. Yeah, but there's like these catastrophic problems. Our government, our economic situation is our government's insolvent. Like a bank's insolvent, but all the banks are insolvent, and all the and our government is insolvent. Trump's big on going Chapter 11 or Chapter 7, going bankrupt. He's done it 6 times. You think he's going to be able to solve this problem? Like Trump bails and he doesn't pay people what he owes them. He screws people over, most of those much poorer people than him. That's been his personal solution. You think he's got a solution for this, monstrous debt that we have? No, no one does. So, like, no matter how you look at it, we're effed. And you can deal with it or not. Like, I don't care. Like, I mean, most of us aren't going to survive what's going to happen. There's going to be population reduction. And when things change, and, most people aren't going to want to deal anyway. So being in denial just makes it like that much easier just to, curl up in the fetal position as the, Chinese are invading or whatever's going to happen. The nuclear bombs are hitting, and just, it's like your video game, avatar just gives up, and then hopefully you get a chance to reincarnate in. Most people won't, and I don't know what's going to happen to your soul or your future, your future existence, but it probably will be put on hold because there's going to be massive population reduction. But like, why bother caring about that if you're not going to even try to be a part of the solution, right? And that's I mean, finding the divinity within you is the beginning, which I talk about extensively. So anyways, I got a bunch of mishmash stuff of just how bad the politicians suck, all of them, how weird they are, and how there's no solution here. Because, like, you look at these people, you think these people are going to solve your problem? You honestly think Trump could solve your problem? Like, he's a putz, he's a moron. Like, and he's getting older, too. Like, you think he's going to be the oldest president in history. And it's, and he wasn't that great when he was, I mean, he was never going to be a great president. He was a great president because he made a mockery of the presidency. And that's, but he's not even running things. He's got handlers, and he can't do it. The president is limited in their power to do anything that would bring about real change. They're not going to hand over real change to some guy who's there for 8 years, or woman in this case, right? You think they're going to hand the possibility of real change over to these? No, of course not. They're fly by night, 8 years. Like, these people have been working on these plans, these, CIA and the intelligence communities and all these, the foreign policy people, the CFO, all these organizations, all these handlers. They're working on a plan, a sustained plan that can't be interrupted by the president. The president doesn't even get access to classified data and these plans because they're not even going to be there that long, right? They're not going to allow some person to come in for 4 years and fuck everything up for them. And so, I mean, there it is. Okay, so let's get into the support of what I'm saying here. This is how bad these candidates and people are. Okay, Tuesday, September 3rd. Tim Walz might be gay. So they put this, I'm going to, they'll copyright the song, so I'm going to mute this. But I believe one of my viewers sent this to me, right? So you have the J.D. Vance might be a trans man. And I don't know. Like, I'm not saying yes or no. But there are some things here. And the way he has these mannerisms, like just the way he acts here, Tim Walz. It's just the way he waves there, all this stuff. There's a possibility this guy might be gay. Look at him. Wow. And this is this great picture here. Almost like a little bit flamboyant. They're both trying to be typical white guys, right? Like heterosexual, run of the mill. They're appealing to white. I mean, the Republican Party in general is, pushing this idea of white guys. And Tim Walz is supposed to be the white guy on the Kamala Harris ticket because, white people still make up the majority of people, 60% of Americans, right? So they have to get the white vote. The white vote has to be some percentage of white people voting for them. And they want these, so-called normal people, right? The more conservative type, traditional white people. And, Trump isn't a normal white guy. He comes from wealth, He was born into wealth, and he was like maybe a billionaire, right? And so with Kamala Harris, that she has to have, especially in these Midwestern states, which this guy apparently is hurting her, and even his home state, which is bizarre, of Minnesota. But this guy, grew up in Nebraska, and Minnesota, these kind of states like that, right? He was, supposedly in the National Guard, and he's a hunter, right? He checks all the boxes, but he's, a little bit flamboyant, right? And when I saw that, he reminded me of this guy, Soupy Sales. So when I grew up, there was Rock Hudson that came out as gay, as a Hollywood movie star, and it wasn't so easy to tell with Rock Hudson. I mean, I didn't watch many of his movies, and he came out gay later in life. When I was probably in my 20s. But there are these old timey comedians. One guy was Paul Lynde, who was the center square on the Hollywood, the tic-tac-toe game, Hollywood Squares. They played this like tic-tac-toe game, and they redid it with Oprah, with Whoopi Goldberg as the center square when they redid the show. But you were playing tic-tac-toe, and you would ask celebrities. They would ask celebrities questions, and you would either agree with the celebrity's answer or not. And the celebrities had these, jokes ahead of time. Like they had the question, and they often had these jokes. Not often. They had like jokes ahead of time, so they wouldn't look like morons. And they had this guy Paul Lynde who was very gay, but like back then everyone was closeted, right? There was no openly gay people, and like as a kid I didn't know, right? Like I didn't know, because nobody knew. It wasn't like, like the idea of gay people was there, but you didn't know anybody who was like openly gay because it just wasn't, back in the 70s. So here's Paul Lynde here. So when you play tic-tac-toe, the center square is kind of important. So he was the featured person, right? Whoopi Goldberg became the big star when they redid the show, and they would have a set question for, like the host wouldn't. Peter Marshall also hosted, I think, the dating game, or one of those things. But he would have a set question for each of these celebrities, right? Each of these celebrities would have a joke written for them, and he'd ask the question, and they'd deliver the joke. And Paul Lynde he must have been a producer. He must have had some influence in Hollywood.
True or false, there is now a travel agency that specializes in nude cruises to Europe.
I bet I know how they picked the captain.
So he would eventually answer if it was true or false, and the contestant either agreed with him or not. So the job of the celebrity in this show was really, they were purposeless, because they could have just asked the question to the contestant, right? And the tic-tac-toe was kind of irrelevant as well, a little bit more important than the celebrity. But this guy was always, this was his thing.
There's a new bra on the market that squeaks in various musical tones. The hills are alive with the...
So that's Paul Lynde, but there's this other guy, Soupy Sales, who reminds me of Walls. And this guy, Soupy Sales, who, as I got older, I went, oh, these guys were gay, right? Soupy Sales was married, but that was, like a beard marriage.
But a lion. And so they sit down at a table, and the waiter comes over and says, okay, what are you guys having? And the rabbit says, bring me a half a head of lettuce, no dressing. And he says, well, what's he going to have? And the rabbit says, he ain't eating. And the waiter says, what's the matter? Ain't he hungry? And the rabbit says, if he was hungry, would I be here?
So this guy, and then there's another one here. So he's like, this reminds me of Tim Walz.
And you do that, I love you, give me a kiss.
What is it? What could happen? So watch him run from a naked woman here. Do not touch. And so then he comes back and pretends but I guess he had two wives. which I assume were Baird wives, but very effeminate, right? Very, and he just, like the way he talks and his expressions remind me of Tim Walz. And of course, I covered J.D. Vance, possibly, I mean, whatever's going on with him. He's just got weird, that eyeliner and it's just, like these politicians are just manufactured. They're trying to manufacture a brand, a type of persona, and who they really are. Like you'll never see it. I mean, maybe see glimpses of it, but they're not what they pretend to be, right? So, this is I'm in the editing process, but this is about lying, right? This is about pretending to be something you're not, and these politicians are all doing that. So that's a given. They all pretend to be something, and they're going after a demographic with Tim Walz, right? The all-American dad, the football coach, right? Coach, they're calling him coach. He's coach, and the guy who's a high school teacher, and comes from the Midwest, the suburbs, and he's in a swing state. He's one of those guys, right? They were picking a white guy to run with her. They purposely picked a white guy to run with her, like Biden picked a woman of color to run with him because demographics were needing to be addressed, right? And so they've manufactured this guy as a family guy, as a all-American dad guy, but some of the stuff that they ran out during his sort of profile at the DNC, now I'm questioning, why was he? Well, let's go look at it here. I googled Tim Walz is gay. Tim Walz was a staunch LGBTQ ally long before it was, I would assume it's going to say popular, before it was common, right? So why would that be? I mean, so there are straight people that support gay rights, right? There are straight people who are, advocates for, there's white people that are advocates for black people. There's various demographics of people that stand up for other demographics, right? They're marketing him as a football soldier and a military guy, an all-American gun owner, kind of, all-around dad and this kind of guy, right? But long before he was a politician, he was standing up for gay people's rights. And maybe he was a heterosexual guy who felt some compassion for gay people. But who else stands up for gay people rights? Gay people, right? Like maybe he, back in 1999, he was a part of the gay-straight alliance, right? This kid was being bullied. He came out as gay, and Tim Walz had his back, which, I'm not criticizing that. I don't think that's a bad thing. But what's Tim Walz's motivation for this, right? Tim Walz once advised high school student. Tim Walz advised the gay-straight alliance. It helped. Tim Walz's wife took in a gay student to an Indigo Girls concert in the 1990s, right? And so this was a passion of his. He was a football coach, but he also was very supportive of gay students long before, maybe he had in his eyes on being a politician, but, he wasn't yet, right? He hadn't run for office yet. He was just a coach and a high school student, a high school teacher. So this is weird. How many parents would let their kids go to a concert with a teacher? How many teachers would take some kid, a student, to a rock concert, right? Like there's boundaries there, right? So the Indigo Girls were lesbians, and so I'm not sure what this is here and why they're doing it, but the sort of montage they put together for this guy, he's all over the place. He's coaching football. There's some kid that didn't have enough money for school lunches, so he took a second job to pay for the kids' lunches, and he's stopping stray kids from bullying gay kids and coaching football and doing this and that, running all over the place and getting involved in politics. He's got a high-maintenance, high-needs kid at home, who's got emotional issues and learning disabilities and things. Who has time to take other kids to a concert? Like, most parents don't even want to go to a concert with their own kids, right? And, as a parent, like if a teacher said, can I take your kid to an Indigo? Like, did the parents not support the kid being gay and they took this girl to a concert? I mean, how much, what was the whole story there, right? So, I didn't care about any of this. Like, I didn't mention it. I saw the promo for him. I thought, some of it was weird and some of it did make sense and it all looked pretty performative and contrived, right? and he yanked his kid by the arm, showing frustration with his kid. And, he's got a permanent frown. He looks like such a gloomy person. The lines on his face. I mean, he doesn't look like, he looks depressed. He's high energy, and he pumps up the crowd. He runs around, like Steve Ballmer and Soupy Sales. And, he's got all these kind of, weird middle-aged white guy moves and things. And, he lied about the taco thing. Remember that, he made white guy tacos. And, this whole thing that this fraud they're perpetrating on the American people. But after seeing this video where, people have put together a compilation of him acting sort of flamboyant. And then there's this, kind of odd thing he did as a football coach, right? There's so many things you can do. There's so many battles you can fight, right? Like if you're, out there and you have to, being a football coach is like a full-time job. You're also a teacher and, they're eventually going to be a politician and you got your own kids. And his kids were young at the time. And so you get spread too thin. Everyone knows that. It's hard enough to do a full-time job and stay involved in your kids' lives. And then especially one of the kids has high needs and, your relationship with your wife and have some sort of, if he's going to church and having some sort of, those types of things, right? Which I don't say very much about. But, maybe he was looking at being a politician. He was building a resume, who knows what his thing. Plus, he would go away on weekends and be a National Guard guy. Like they're weekend warriors. It's like one weekend a month they have to go away and do like National Guard stuff. So, like if you spread yourself too thin, you neglect your family, your wife, it's just all these things. Taking kids to Indigo Girls concerts, it's an odd thing to do. And then there's this stuff, like the way his mannerisms. So Ben Stiller, Tropic Thunder is a great movie. And Ben Stiller's made some funny stuff. And I believe him to be smart, right? But like here,
what you like about Harris' platform?
Just very excited about moving forward. And
so you don't have anything to say about her platform because she doesn't have one.
all the energy and excitement that's around this movement right now. So.
Yes, there's no. Why is there energy and excitement around her? Like why? Like she's a part of the current administration. And nobody wanted her. Like, if you say, all right, she's better than Joe Biden, well, then why didn't she beat Joe Biden? Why wasn't there enthusiasm behind her when she ran against Joe Biden? Why wasn't there enthusiasm when she was vice president? When she was polling as the lowest ever in terms of approval rating of any vice president? Like, it's just manufactured and fake, right? And there are consequences to electing a flim-flam man like Donald Trump, who's an obvious narcissist and a serial liar, and somebody who doesn't, even register as a real candidate like Kamala Harris. I mean, it's all fake, right? And they're all controlled. But when you're getting down to this level of depravity in terms of like just people without any real redeeming qualities and substance.
That's why I'm here, because it's time for change, and it seems like it's happening.
You think
Time for change from what? Joe Biden? What do you mean time for change? What the fuck are you talking? What the F are you talking about, bro? Time for change. Change from an old white guy to a Indian Jamaican woman? Is that the change? Like, is that a significant change? Like demographics? Like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have basically the same policies.
she'll be able to sustain the momentum post-convention?
For sure.
You think the race is going to be close?
It's going to be close, but everybody's motivated to work.
Okay, so they're trying to get him out. But just weird. Like nothing of substance, because she's not a real, like there's no, what do you like about Kamala Harris? Oh, it's just, I like the enthusiasm. Like, I want to say this, well, there's actually a comment. Let me read the comment here. And it goes with all this. So somebody just wrote, I was just listening to that segment of the video, and somebody wrote, your opinion, let me make this bigger here. Why people can't accept the truth. I love your content. You speak truth when others are scared, care more about approval than the obvious facts, looking them in the face. I feel you are spiritual aware of the situation that's unfolding. You are disappointed, but it was meant to be. The people are easily corrupted and distracted, as stated by my belief in the Bible. Your belief somehow off runs parallel with mine to some point. We know the end of the system is close, maybe not before I pass this plan to another. I live in a shelter right now listening to you on a kind of an old Amazon tablet, enjoying your refreshing hardcore truth. Don't change. Thank you for your honest peace. What this person's talking about really, which is it's a real problem in the truth community. It's truth by committee or truth by popularity, right? Or truth by, majority. And it's not with the majority of people that's the truth. The truth is the truth. Like if you're seeking the truth and, the number one thing you have to do inside yourself is confront your personal bias, right? So there's truth that's going to be easy to accept. If you're a right-wing person, it's easy to see and accept what a piece of shit Kamala is and, all the Democrats are and the liberal agenda. But is it easy for you to see Trump? No, because that's your personal bias. So when you have a personal bias, like for me, the Sajmark system, when the current master of the system went complete, incompetent cult leader, it's hard for me to accept also for the fact that I saw him as a spiritual person beforehand, before he fell, right? So, I had experience of him as somebody who was good and, a devoted member of the system, but then he shit the bed, right? And so, it was harder for me to accept that, but that was my personal bias. And, eventually I just had to, as painful as it was, right? About loved ones, your kids, and there's people in your life that are going to disappoint you, your parents, whatever it might be, right? And you have your personal bias and then your own limitations. And so to be a real truther, you have to confront your own stuff, right? The things that are hard for you to see. You have to eradicate those things and confront those things within yourself, right? And so when people are making a case for Trump or Kamala, as I said earlier, there's enough data as Kamala, she's running on Joe Biden. She has Joe Biden's people. Like her presidency isn't going to look much different than Joe Biden. She doesn't have anything of her own anyway. They're going to tell her what her platform is. And Trump, it's the same way. We know what Trump was 4 years ago, and Trump, was potentially could have got a lot more done then. Now he's viewed as a criminal. He's been so jaded, and, it's going to be full out opposition. The Democrats are going to sabotage any success he could have. And they're, whatever happens in terms of legislation, things like that. And then he'll be a lame duck after 2 years. The Republicans can't wait to get rid of this guy. And he's older now. And so, he's jumped the shark. And like his failure on the Operation Warp Speed and COVID and all these things, he's not, he was a lot better off his first term. Like he's going to be limping into this thing if he's president. And they're going to be totally working him and using him. And, there's going to be no, none of his agenda is going to be passed. But when you think about either of these people and politicians in general, they say a bunch of bullshit things just to pander to you, right? Because they are truth by committee. And they, their truth is whatever truth it needs to be, whatever will get them support, financial or, people voting for them or whatever it might be, right? And the powers that be. Like they have to show that they'll chameleon themselves. But every politician makes promises they have no intention of keeping, promises that they think they can make happen, but they can't, right? And you never know how those things are going to go, right? So when Trump first got elected, I thought he was going to be, he wanted to have a war guy, right? He wanted to have a military-style, North Korean military-style parade with the missiles and shit going down Pennsylvania Avenue when he was sworn in as president. And he talked about being totally willing and able to use nuclear bombs. And he was talking shit to the foreign leaders and saying and it sounded like he was going to be like people were totally worried about him and being like a war president. And he turned out to be the exact opposite. That was the one thing I could say Trump did. And it's a big thing, right? But now he's going to give a blank check to Israel, who eventually is going to go after Iran, and that's World War III. So Trump presidency will probably lead to World War III relatively quickly. The Ukraine thing is sort of petering out. So, it's more likely that if there's World War III on the horizon in the next 4 years, it's going to come from Trump and maybe Kamala as well and Israel. Both of them have a pathway to World War III. But what I'm saying here, in the very limited things that the president controls, the very limited things that they're going to do, small mundane things. And then the general policies of their handlers. You never know who's going to be worse or which one's going to affect you worse or who's going to expedite the collapse or whatever it is, right? You can't tell just because they're a Democrat or Republican or based on their personalities. And the people who control the system don't even know, right? Some of it's just the way the ball bounces. And so, there's, all of that kind of stuff, the platforms and all the things that they say they believe in, that's all just bullshit anyway. And so you're basically voting for the person, and it's more like just a popularity contest because it's not a real person. It's just some character they've configured. I mean, Trump may be a little bit more real, but he's also like way worse because he's not faking it. The person that he is way worse because, he's a bad person. Like the way he acts, he isn't a person of character, right? Like he's more real, but he's also worse in terms of the character he puts out there because he's not putting out a character, right? I mean, Kamala's a bad person from her actions and she's fake, but she doesn't say the kind of like things that Trump says. Like Trump says just horrible things all the time. And the Trumpers love it because they don't care as long as it's about Democrats or whatever, right? Or somebody else. But Trump is, a very obnoxious, narcissistic, braggadocious person. And his fans love it, but he's not a good person, right? So anyways, but the main point here with Ben Stiller, this other stuff I'm going to show you, there's this epic rally with Kamala and Jojo Magoo, and Jojo Magoo says one part's just hilarious. Like, it's just platinum. Like, I'm going to miss that guy. He's so bad. I'm like, oh, my God, where are you going? You were just great. But anyways, the main point is that it's a crapshoot. Like, voting, neither one's is going to save America. But in terms of the small things they're going to do, it's hard to say which one's going to affect you better or which one's going to, delay. I mean, it's very hard to say because nobody can till it happens. But anybody who comes out enthusiastically for either of these candidates, you got to question their grasp on reality, right? I mean, it's bad, or they're just out and out shills or liars. So I want to get back to Kamala Harris, her interview. There's one segment I didn't show you, and I haven't seen it yet either. But this is Trump again. A couple things with Trump. Trump went to Pennsylvania.
We're joining forces to defeat government corruption, restore free speech, and make America healthy again. We're going to make America healthy again, We're a nation that is not doing well in a lot of ways, and we're not doing so well with health, but we're going to solve a lot of those problems, I think, over the next short period of time. A lot of it's common. A lot of that's common sense, too. It's all common sense when you get right down to it, but we're going to get toxic chemicals out of our environment, and we're going to get them out of our food supply. We're going to get them out of our bodies.
So this is RFK Jr. stuff, which he's now incorporating. His message, like they've told him to do that. I don't believe he even understands what this means, right? But, because they're all in bed with Big Pharma, and then, of course, the, toxic food stuff, right? But like he's now having to include this message to appeal to RFK people, which I guess this was one of his key things that what people were into. Because, people know they're being poisoned, right? They know there's poison in their food.
We'll get them out of our body, right? Right? With victory this fall, we will enact this pro-family agenda, and we will bring back the American dream, bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. They never talk about the American dream. They never mention it. They don't talk about the American flag. By the way, the American flag, we got some of the greatest congressmen warriors here that you have anywhere. And congressmen, go to Congress soon, like immediately, but soon. We should give a 1-year sentence in jail to anybody that burns the American flag.
It's just stupid. And if you bow to that flag, right? Like we all had to, when we were kids, pledge allegiance to a flag. The flag was in the classroom and, you pledge allegiance to the United States of America. And why would you do that? As a kid, you're not given a choice and you're not able to think your way through it. I regret doing that because, United States isn't God, right? You can't, a country is a country and you should have whatever feeling about your country. it's a group of people that are working together, and there's things I love about America and things that I don't. But, in terms of pledging your allegiance to it, like in putting your hand on your heart and all that BS that they made you do, and it's just a flag. It's a symbol. And, flags are used in terms of, war cries. I mean, flag is a symbol of war, really, especially with America. And, who cares? It's just it's just a symbol. But he wants to give people a year in jail, and that's against your First Amendment rights. And I don't think burning the flag is a good idea. I'm not about flag burning or anything to do with the flag. Flag's unimportant. It's just a symbol. But you can't do this. Like, it can't be done. Like, you can't put people in jail for burning it. Woo! Fight, fight, fight. Fight, fight, fight.
Do it, Mike. Right? Do it.
USA. If you don't understand how moronic this is, the USA chant, and we do bad stuff all over the world. We're an evil empire, and our lifestyle is predicated on other people's suffering around the world. It's just, there's all of it, the way the country was built, right? The Native Americans were, in a very non-cool way, wiped out for the most part and relegated to, these reservations. We just took the country from them, which happens. Like, I don't think that's a good thing, but it is what it is, right? It's what people do. So I'm not, crying about that or saying whatever. It's just, it happens. People get conquered. And sometimes it's done in a dickish way, and it was done in a dickish way. But then we also had slave labor that, helped create this country, right? Free labor and free land, and the most pristine land, because the Native Americans, had respect for nature and all those stuff. Like we inherited a healthy, abundant country. Well, a continent, right? That was brought into the European civilization, and it was not done in a cool way. Not by the English, not by the French, not by any Spanish. Like the way that people were treated that were here, and the slave labor and all of it. And, that's what we did. Like, that's not, when I say we, because our ancestors, like I wasn't, genetically a part of it, but that's, as Americans, that's our collective history, right? And we're all a part of that. If you're an American citizen, well, no matter your color or race, your demographics or your beliefs, well, that's our country, that's our history. And we've continuously, we manufacture these weapons of war, our military-industrial complex. We export war, and we mess around with other countries and their sovereignty, and we exploit people, and we take their resources, and we're consuming like 20% of the world's resources, and we're 5% of the population. That used to be the case. I don't know what it is now, but it is. We're consumers, and that's how, it's an abusive situation, right? And that's what empires do. And we all benefit from that, right? And so, the cheering of the USA on top of it is just a dick move. Like you're taking other people's stuff, and you have all this abundance where these countries are starving. You go to the Olympics, and you have these athletes, and we dominate the competition. Russia was left out because of, like somehow when they do something, they're held accountable. Like, why wasn't America kicked out of the Olympics for those illegal wars in Afghanistan and, these other places in Iraq, and what we did to Libya? That was just like a complete dick move and abusive and evil. But we get away with it. Russia, of course, they're provoked into a war with Ukraine by the Biden administration, and they're kicked out of the Olympics, and then we go cheer USA, USA, right? Like, it's just a dick move.
That looks so bad at the Democrat National. I always call it Democrat. They want it to be called Democratic. I said, then change your name. They don't change their name. Sounds worse, so I use it. But at the Democrat.
Yeah, see, that's what he does, right? We'll get into that. I'm going to show it's just Twitter. He make stuff up that isn't,
National Convention. I watch those American flags burning all over the place. I think it's a disgrace. And they said it's unconstitutional to stop it. Like hell it is, okay?
Like hell.
Like hell it is.
Woo! Well, that's Trump. Okay, so there he is right here. This is Tim Walz. This is actually not a... I don't think this is a negative one on him, but it is negative. Like, this isn't posted by a Trump fan. This is posted by, I think, a Tim Walz fan. And that shows you how clueless they are. Because the guy's just so goofy. But this is... We'll go back to Trump in a moment. Then we'll get to Kamala Harris's. Not only... She has a speech with Joe Biden, too. We'll watch a little bit of Jojo Magoo here today. But we'll... let's start here. Look at this guy, right? Look at this MNFer.
Undecided relatives, so they know.
So let's start from the beginning.
This is the part, clip and save it and send it to your undecided relative.
Like his eyes here, like he's just not a normal person.
So they know. If you're a middle class family or a family trying to get into the middle class, Kamala Harris is going to cut your taxes.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, there you go, Tim. Open it wide.
If you're getting squeezed by prescription drug prices, Kamala Harris is going to take on Big Pharma.
Well, yes, she is. Except when it comes to making the vax mandatory and how much of a dick you were about that. In your state of Minnesota, we had neighbors ratting out neighbors, right? Like, you guys are against Big Pharma except for the COVID vax that was rushed out by Trump, right?
If you're hoping to buy a home, Kamala Harris is going to help make it more affordable.
Well, she's doing all those things.
And no matter who you are, Kamala Harris is going to stand up and fight for your freedom to live the life that you want to lead. This is the part, clip.
Okay, so there's a thing I got to go copy from the TV. I'm going to see if it's available here. But that guy, Ari Meebla is, I got this thing to do about Israel. I did that in my last video. But he interviews some rock star, and she's just goofy. And she's like completely freaked out about Trump. She was freaked out about COVID. And she's freaked out about abortion being banned, right? And they're talking about that being a freedom. It's life begins at conception by every, it is. Like, that's just a fact, right? It's not because I say it. It's because it is. Like, if you believe in a soul, then a soul, a third soul, like if you have a soul and your spouse has a soul and you engage in an act of reproduction and there is an embryo, then that embryo has to be created by a third soul, right? If you have a soul and your wife has a soul, if you have a soul, your husband has a soul, the baby also has to have its own personal soul, right? It doesn't have the mom's soul until it's born, right? It's a separate soul. So if you believe in souls, then it's conception. And if you believe in science, when the sperm of the man fertilizes the egg of the woman, right? It's now you have a third person. It's not the man, it's not the woman, it's a combination of the two. It's in the woman's body, sure, but that's a third person. And so that's when life begins. And so anything that disrupts that life is a murder. Any intentional act to kill that life, to stop that life, is murder. That's what we call it. That's what we call, so we'll get into that. I haven't even showed you that. I'll see. Let me see if that's available here.
I'm preaching to the choir, so it's nice to know that a message is getting to somebody that disagrees with me, I guess.
Do you think younger people out there are in touch with how endangered these rights are and the legal footing for Roe v. Wade?
Yeah, I think people are terrified.
Okay, so they covered the Biden, Kamala Harris event thing that happened. It's wonderful. I'm going to put this at the end of this video. It is spectacular. Just hilarious. I mean, total JoJo Magoo. He goes off on a tangent and tells a completely inappropriate story, and there's so much more than that. So they just cut off this interview because they were covering that live event, and they came back to it midway into her, like she was in mid-sentence. But she says that the youth, who she represents, she says she's 27, is terrified that they're going to lose the constitutional right to have an abortion, which is, you think about it, it's such a weird thing to put in the Constitution in the first place, right? You know, I'm not a pro-life movement, I'm a pro-truth movement person. In terms of, like, there was a guy who was a pro-lifer I drove by, and he had a picture of a fetus, like a mutilated fetus, outside a grocery store, he was, whatever it was, right, just the other day. And, it's counterproductive. That doesn't help your case. You don't know how to move people or change people's minds. Like, people who agree with you. So how do you get the people who disagree with you to agree with you, right? How do you get them to see your point of view? And the way that you don't do that is tell them that they're evil pieces of shit, right? like that never works. You have to go about it some other way if you want to win people over to your point of view. My big thing is just don't lie about it. It's murder, and, accept that it's murder, right? Call it what it is, which is murder. And the rest will fall into place. I mean, for the liberals, answer the question, when does life begin? Because when you hear that point of view, when you think about that as a person, what is it that you're killing inside the woman's belly? It's not cancer. It's not a malignant growth. It's a baby, right? And you're saying that's okay. Like, the government can somehow give you the right to do that. As I said earlier, but I understand why abortion exists and why, it's the act is put on too much, is put on the expecting mother, right? Too much pressure, too much disinformation, too much anxiety, too much, there's not familial support. There's not there's just such degradation and sexual activity, younger kids getting, the sexual active, being sexually active is hitting younger and younger generations. Girls are menstruating earlier, right? So there's a lot there. There's a lot that goes into the whole issue. It's not, as black and white as either side wishes it was, right? In society, it depends on, abortion, because if there are that many unwanted kids, it would be America would be a lot more impoverished state if there was no abortion, right? So there's, and I'm not saying justifying, abortion because of that. I'm just saying it's more complex than people would like it to be. But she says it's terrifying. All as this new ruling is with the Supreme Court, it's making the states decide, and the people get to vote on it, right? And ultimately, whether it's legal or illegal, you could still find a way to abort your baby. Like, there's just, of course, it's much better for, it's much safer when it's, when it's done with legally, obviously. But, it's something that you're not going to stop women from doing it just because you make it illegal. And so there's other things that need to be looked at. And a lot of this is our social structure and, the depravity, the overall depravity in abortion is just a symptom of that, right? Let's get back to her point here.
But we have $1 of each ticket going to the Mariposa Fund, which is an abortion fund based in Santa Fe. And there's all kinds of things we can do, but I hate that the responsibility has been thrown on these grassroots organizations instead of the government. I think I've just been raised my whole life thinking everything's moving up and it can only get better.
This idea that the government can make things permissible. I want to add that, it's like I was meant to see this thing. I don't have ESPN anymore on DirecTV, so that's a thing. And, when I eat breakfast, lunch, sometimes I turn the news on depending on what's going on, right? And, sports sometimes like ESPN, and I eat quickly. But I turn this on, and the talk between, the event with JoJo Magoo and Kamala Harris had just ended, and she was in mid-sentence, and I didn't even know that happened. And I was like, well, this is effed up. But she said from Santa Fe, and I lived in Santa Fe for a while. This is a very Santa Fe type person. And they're so convinced that the progressive movement and this liberal agenda is progress, and it's not, right? And, you know, the conservatives are so convinced that the old way, when Christian conservatives ran the country, that was good, and it wasn't. There's flaws in that, right? I mean, the Christian religion itself is corrupted, and the power structure there, and it wasn't like human beings were progressing. You know, the Christianity was preventing people from connecting from the divinity within them, which is a huge step, but a small step, right? I mean, it'd be a huge step for humanity to realize that there's divinity within them and cultivate a relationship, you know, become spiritual people, which I talk about all the time. And the religion was blocking that. And so that's why, you know, there was the hippie movement. But also the hippie movement went too far into, you know, the ungodly, right? To the, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And so, like, neither side gets that their side is flawed and not evolution, not a part of an evolutionary movement. That both sides are tragically flawed.
Do you think also younger people today are perhaps understandably surprised that this might be this is a right that's taken away? Rarely does the Supreme Court retract human rights.
Totally. I mean, I think as a 27-year-old, that's how it feels to me. Mm-hmm. But I definitely talk to like 20-year-old people who are like, what do you mean? It's been a trash fire since I was watching the news with my parents.
Bummer.
This guy tries so hard to be cool. I'm not going to let the trash fire thing go, but it's going to continue here, so we'll come back to that. But this idea that the government gives you rights, right? It's silly. Like, oh, the government just took away my rights, or it's the government can't give you the right to kill an unborn baby. The government can't suffer the spiritual consequences for an abortion, right? The government can't, the government isn't God, right? You can't, and God even can't give you permission to do something that's wrong. Like, there's no fucking mulligans. There's just, there's right and there's wrong, and you got to figure out what that is. And, there's divinity within you, and you can figure out what the right path is, what the right choice is. And when you make the wrong choice, there's consequences, right? It's that simple. It's not, complex. But the government can't absolve you of your sins. Neither can a priest. And neither can Jesus. Your sins are your sins. Nobody can absolve you. You get a pass on that. No, whatever you do, and you take the consequences that go with it, right?
Huge bummer.
Trash fire. It's a reminder how events do define generations and cohorts. Just like Vietnam and civil rights shaped our past generations, Bridgers is connecting with some young people who see, as she put it, this nation not only in decline, facing Trumpism and the uncertainty of living today, but with even younger fans, younger than her, who say...
You see where it says murder there? Like, address that. Just address the idea that it could be murder. Like, just take the other side's point of view and explain why it's not murder. Again, I understand the argument a woman gets the right to choose what she can do with her own body. Of course, you guys didn't like that argument was made for anti-vaxxers. That only applied to women who didn't want to kill their fetuses, right? But, what about this argument? Like, when does life begin if it's murder? Just, say something about that. Pretend like you can see both sides of the point of view here.
This is all they know, this political trash fire.
It's called a dumpster fire. She called it a trash fire, and he's, trying to be cool or whatever he is. Remember he tried to talk about the beef between Drake and Kendrick Lamar, right? He's trying to bring these musicians in. He's trying to be cool. He's so not cool, and he's trying to be hip and all these things. It says here, after Trump pandemic and fall of Roe v. Wade, some young people see U.S. in decline. And, they're dummies. They're just young dummies. But you don't call it a trash fire. It's a fucking dumpster fire. Even this guy knows about dumpster fires.
Some people see a dumpster fire and do nothing but watch the spectacle. Some are too scared to face the danger, or they think it will benefit them if they just let it keep on burning. Others shrug and say, oh, all this talk of a dumpster fire, it's just fake news. There is an inferno raging in Washington. But here in the land of 10,000 lakes, We know how to put out a fire.
I am Richard Painter, and I approve of this message.
That's right. Dick Painter knows about dumpster file. Dumpster file. He knows about dumpster file. And you guys are calling it a trash fire? Come on.
This is all they know, this political trash fire. Now, whatever the premise, Bridgers has been connecting with this generation, composing much of her current album before the pandemic, yet with a style that also has really met the moment and drawn on some of her idols that so many music fans love, like David Bowie, which we also discussed, while some music writers have dubbed her the voice of the pandemic. Take a listen.
Who did that? Who called her the voice of the pandemic? Who did? I've never heard her name before. I actually have, but I didn't know I heard her name, which I'll get to at the very end of this segment. I went and looked up some of her music and some of these things, right? Music fans flocked to artists channeling pandemic energy. She was channeling pandemic energy. She was, this girl right here. She just got it with her trash fire.
It was very interesting to put out music when nobody could leave their house, and it was very interesting to not leave my house.
It was very interesting to not leave your house? Like, what are you talking about? It's very interesting to be in my house and then not be able to go out of the house when I wanted because the government said I couldn't.
You have songs, although they may have also been written during this pandemic, that are kind of about being alone or ending up feeling lonely or being at home.
Totally, yeah. I mean, the last tour I got home from before COVID, I didn't leave my house at all for 10 days. And it was scary.
Oh my God, this generation's so low functioning. This is the voice of the this is the voice of the pandemic generation. It was so scary. I couldn't leave my house. And when I did, it was scary because I thought I was going to get COVID and die. I was scared all the time. It was like a dumpster fire being a trash fire.
I don't know. I can scare myself sometimes when my job is being in front of people, and then when I'm left to my own devices, I can really, really isolate in a dark way. So
Jesus Christ, how do you make it through a frickin' day? I mean, it's so pretentious and so self-involved, and it's just so scary and in a dark way. And if I'm isolated in my home, it's I can isolate in a very dark way.
I did kind of shine a light on that.
David Bowie talks about being scared or unsafe artistically as a place that you're going to do good work. We were thinking of you with that, so let's take a look at that.
If you feel safe in the area that you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you're capable of being in. Go a little bit out of your depth. And when you don't feel that your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the right place to do something exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
David Bowie was okay, right? But there's no genius here. I've looked at her music as depressing. It's I'll get into that a bit. It's like Billie Eilish, but like lightweight Billie Eilish. And she has an obsession with death, and it's a whole thing. Weird stuff, right? And I mean, for a generation that's this depressed and obsessed with death, abortion should be something where there's like an understanding of, the murder part of it, right?
Is there an example of that you can think of in your work?
My first album, my producers and I, Tony Berg and Ethan Gruska, we really butted heads the entire time. I wanted to make a folk album, and Tony was like, speed it up, speed it up, speed it up, speed it up. We need a rock song. And I was just like, I don't know, it's I'm selling out, I hate this. And it was so fun. The final product is my favorite thing to play live. I'm so glad that I was pushed in that direction. So then the second record, it was just we're experimenting. Everything is scary.
Is everything scary, though? Is it all scary? Maybe it's just you and your generation, because it doesn't sound that scary. Like you're trying something new musically. It sounds like it's, something you just try, and you don't like it. You can go back to your old shit, right?
Everything is different. Everything is the opposite of how I wrote it. And I'm so grateful for that. So I'm like a lot more used to being scared now.
Richard's talking to us here for our new Maverick series, and there's a rock tradition that I bet you know about. It dates back over 50 years, which she engaged in. Bridger's smashing her guitar last year while performing on SNL. We're showing you Hendrix doing it there too. It's a standard move in rock, but it suddenly drew all kinds of criticism when a woman rocker did it. There's one more question we have to ask. It's obviously very serious. And that is, if men who play music can smash guitars for decades, can women, or is that not okay for women?
Oh, that's my favorite thing ever. No, I think women should stay away from it.
Because they're women?
Yeah, I don't know.
We didn't want
Our
to go
little arms can't, like, really get in there, so.
We didn't want to go in depth.
Okay, so this is her SNL performance, right? So, I don't hate it. It's kind of a little bit depressing and melancholy, but it's not really rock. And I'm not a big rock fan. I'm not a big, whatever. I mean, I was when I was in high school, but I don't, old time rock music. But then at the end of it, she does a guitar solo and it, goes somehow turns into rock here. And then she lets out a primal scream. And they have all these guys, guys have trumpets here and frickin' they're all dressed in skeletons. It's like, some sort of death cult kind of stuff. And the stage is bathed in red light. I mean, it just has a, demonic feel, right? Devil worshipping feel. She does a really bad job of smashing guitar. She's like, it's pathetic. Like, she's not good at it. She's not strong enough or big enough. And she's hitting it. It's not working. It's like a total fail. Why do that when you suck so bad at it, right? The thing about it is, I'm going to show you more of her music here. But she's not, like, overly angry. Like, she's scared. Her biggest thing was fear. She talked about being scared a lot, terrified even. And then all the things that, like, life is too scary. And she's depressed and she's got depressing music. And, there's not that, like, male testosterone, angry young man kind of thing that went along with smashing guitar. And, it's mostly pretentious now and, it's performative. But it suits, like, a man or at least an angry woman. Like, you could have a big, strong, angry woman. I don't know, like some big physical, rocker who wearing spikes and some biker chick and, going out there and beating the crap out of a guitar. But this girl, she does it and she's like being careful and she's, there's no like just, it's like it's a lack of understanding what the smashing guitar thing is all about. So this is her song. She's drowning in this tub, right? And it's called I Know the End. So it's a death song, right? And she has a lot of her stuff has to do with skeletons. I mean, here's the song itself where she's singing.
Like a wave that crashed and melted on the shore.
It's, it's like Billie Eilish, but like lightweight Billie Eilish, right? It's like depressed music for a depressed generation. And again, I've talked about death very recently, and we have to, death is something like they pretend you can avoid. And, all of it. Like, it's not something we focus on or prepare for, but it's inevitable for all of us and something we can't control. But it doesn't have to be dark and negative, and she has all this, she likes this skeleton outfit. It's not in just this video. She wears this, like, Halloween costume, like, all the time in, like, a couple of her videos, right? And then on the Saturday Night Live sketch thing. But then let me go back to the tub here. So this is a tank, a watering tank, like a trough for big animals like horses and cows. Like if you go to Tractor Supply, like they probably didn't have they couldn't get a tub, and they wanted to stick something in the hallway for the effects. But and it can be, you can use it as a bathtub, but she's trying to use this as some kind of dark thing, like she's drowning. But it's like when it's a trough, it loses that effect. And the music's all like this, It's just, depressed, but like lightweight depressed. And then at the end of it, she's going to do this. She's going to come up to this old lady. And I don't know if the old lady represents her mom or a future version of herself. And they do this. They scream into each other's mouths here. Here it is. And then at the end of it, they are going to make out here. Making out here, right? And, I'm looking for a word to describe this. I'm not sure, a term or something that would describe this video and her music.
Dumpster fire. Dumpster fire.
See this one of these music artists, and I don't like them. I don't like their beliefs. I'll go check out their music. And, it doesn't matter what they are as a person. If I like their music, I'll say it. Taylor Swift is probably one of the people I dislike most in the music industry. Certainly she's the most present, and her victim consciousness crap and everything she stands for, everything she does. But there are a couple of songs of her I like, right? Someone said, "Oh, you're a Swiftie." I'm like, I'm not a Swiftie. Like, if you like music, you like it, right? It doesn't matter how much of a piece of shit the person is. Like, music is something where you hear it and it resonates with you on a vibrational level. That song she does with Bon Iver, or whatever his name is, that guy, called Exile, it's just a masterpiece of a song, right? My wife and I, it's on this playlist that when we travel, I have this playlist. And, so like if this woman made music and I liked her music, I would say it. But it's like Billie Eilish, depressed music. It's going to make you feel depressed. It's just, she's fearful of everything. And she's progressive and twisted and, she's on Ari Meebler. And it's just a whole package, right? And it's, this is not healthy. And it's not, I don't know how popular she is. Her videos don't have that many views. So I assume she's kind of a fringe person. But, it's it just sucks, right? It's everything's degrading. It's everything I'm talking about. The point of this video, I'm in the editing process. And, are things getting better? Well, no. And are people getting better? Certainly not. Are there some things getting better? Certainly technology and things like that. Yeah, it's doing more for you. Is it necessarily better overall for us? No, it's making us weaker, more dependent. We're hemorrhaging skills and abilities, right? We're becoming more and more pathetic, more and more worthless, more and more, dependent on something external to do things we can do for ourselves, right? And maybe should do for ourselves. But I realized that I had one of this girl's songs on my phone. It made it onto our playlist for a little bit. She does a cover of Metallica's Nothing Else Matters. And it's kind of interesting. I liked it a little bit. My wife did, but it was just depressing. And it was on the playlist for like a trip or two. And I'm like, this is just, part of it is my wife does most of the driving because she gets car sick if she's in the passenger seat. And so, she likes music that's going to keep her going, alert and non-depressing music. I can listen to melancholy music, but it has an effect on you. Everybody gives off a vibration and an energy. And, sometimes it's different. Sometimes the energy that someone brings is going to be different than other times. Everyone has a spiritual condition. There's layers to this kind of thing. There's sort of the essence of the person's, ego, the essence of their soul, and then the spiritual approach, where they are spiritually, and then their spiritual condition. And that comes through in music and these other ways of expression through art. And, something like Picasso, I can't even call that art, right? It's so disturbing. When you look at it, you feel the energy. The guy was twisted. He had survived horrific abuse, and he was mentally twisted and, chaotic energy. And so people say he's a great artist. Well, maybe, I guess you could view it that way, but it's ugly. What he's putting out there is ugly. It's ugly in terms of the art itself and the energy that's behind it, right? And most of this stuff that's coming out with these young people, they're just lost and pathetic, and they think what's going on is progress. Like this girl seems to be connected to Santa Fe and that New Age community there and all that stuff. And what they think is progress is really taking them in the wrong direction. What they think is spiritual is really demonic, right? In terms of their egos, it's not really connecting to the soul. It's connecting to a messed up psychological makeup and, perverted, egotistical consciousness. Anyways, this goes with the whole theme of, like, it just sucks out there, right? It's just bad. Like, things are getting worse. Everything's imploding. And it starts with human beings. Like, human beings are de-evolving, both conservative and liberal people. Everybody is going in the wrong direction. So let's get back to this piece of shit, the guy with no damage to his ear, because this is important here. Life, liberty, and leaven.
But, no, I think you think, like, if you believed in God, you believe in God more. And somebody said, like...
What does that mean, you believe in God more? Like, you either believe in God or you don't, right? Like, if you're, like, he's an agnostic. Because if you believe in God more, that means you don't really believe in God. Oh, I believed in God before, but now I really believe in God, right? You can be more impressed with God. Like you can, I had this with the Sajmark system. I went through what's called the cleaning in the Sajmark system. And like I was transformed as a person. Like I went through a really dark time, my divorce was a big part of it. I was in India. I felt miserable inside. I was just kind of wrecked. Not because I was bummed about the divorce. It's just everything was, like it was the external things that were going on in my life, but what I felt internally. And I went through this cleaning, and when I was all cleaned out, I was like, oh my God, this is, even better than I thought it was. But I've never doubted the system because the system's worked. Since the beginning of doing it. And I've never doubted God because I've had experiences of God even when I was a kid, right? I had experience with my, grandfather's soul when he died, all these things. My belief in God has not changed. My faith in God has gotten maybe deeper as I've had more experience with that. But, him saying you believe God even more, it's silly, right? This is life and liberty and leaven.
Like, why? And I'd like to think that God thinks that I'm going to straighten out our country. Our country is so sick, and it's so broken. Our country is just broken. And maybe that was the reason. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. But, first of all, it's fake. So for him to attribute divinity to a fake thing and play on all these religious people, that makes him satanic, right? Like, that's blasphemous because this is fake as fuck. Nothing happened here. You didn't get shot in the ear. And all you guys believe in it because you have no, you're desperate in it. That's your inability to deal with that, the truth of the thing. But what he's doing and using these evangelicals' beliefs against them is wrong. But what he said there about, I got to believe that God wants me to save the country. Why in the world would God want you to save America? I mean, be honest. Look at what's happening to America. Why would God want you to save it? I mean, God doesn't have a mind, and it's an immature way to think that God's just a king in heaven somewhere looking at. I mean, it's just a remedial understanding of God. But, the divine process or divine plan, when something's an abomination, it's a cancer. America and all the governments of the world and all these constructs and our social systems are unnatural and they're demonic, which means they go against the will of God. And all of them, right? We're going in the wrong direction. And so why would God want you to save that? It's silly. Like, wouldn't God rather just say, all right, let's get rid of this and start with something fresh, right? I mean, that's the best way to do something like this, is not try to fix a demonic system, but wipe the system out and then start off with something new, right? Let's start from scratch. We're so far gone. And so why would God like pick this guy? I don't know. I think maybe God wants me to save America. I don't know. Why don't you vote for me and find out? I don't know. I don't know. When that imaginary bullet almost hit my ear, I'm like, God just saved my life with this imaginary fake thing that we did. And I'm like, maybe God wants me to save America. I don't know. I'm starting to believe it myself. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I believe in God. Okay, so I'm editing. It's Wednesday, September 4th. And there's two other things to this, right? The first one is Trump knows he isn't going to save America. Like, he knows he's not. Like, he already was president, and he knows his limitations. He said it. This is, what way is this to run a country? That epic tweet that I keep on showing you and quoting, when he was, the whole election fraud thing was going on. And he was like, what kind of way is this to run a country? Well, you're the president, right? So he showed that he was completely helpless. Like, he knows because he's experienced it. You're limited on what you can do. And saving the country is not on the table, right? And what this was performative, right? Like, for him to come out and say, this thing that happened was so God wanted me to save the country. Because let's say they did their job. Secret Service did their job anywhere along the line, but in the beginning. And they got the guy on the roof before he even took one shot, or they got him before he even got on the roof, or any of the number of ways they could have done their job properly. And so no shots were fired. This would be a non-story. Oh, there was an assassination attempt on Trump, but this guy wasn't a liberal with an agenda. I mean, the guy that the patsy wasn't, the backstory they've created for the patsy wasn't some, story that was like some angry Biden supporter or some deep state operative. They could say, oh, the deep state just tried to kill Trump. But that would just resonate around the Trumper world, right? But to do it right before the convention and have Trump's ear bleeding, right, because that's what the big story was, and then Trump pumping his fist and saying, fight, fight, fight. That was the big moment. It wasn't about them, not the guy, not killing him. I think God saved my life because he wants me to fix the country. No, it was the blood. It was the ketchup, it was the fake blood. And it was you pumping your fist that was the story. And it was right before the convention. And then you've been running on that ever since. It's been a part of your campaign, right? And even now in this interview. And so it's the performative aspect of it. It's the drama. It's the fake blood. It's the all of it that make this event have an effect on the election, right? Because this event is, so many people are like, oh, Trump is going to win for sure now. Like, that's how people viewed it. It was such a big moment for him. And so it isn't about God saving your life, because God could prevent anything. God does things in subtle ways. God could have had this kid caught. The Secret Service could have done their job. The police could have done their job. All the ways that this could have went differently. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are performing without glass in front of them. They're not at risk. Only Trump is at risk of assassination, right? Trump has this. He's now fish boy in a fish tank, as my viewers have pointed out, right? He's behind this glass. Why is he the only one behind the glass? Because this kid apparently was looking into Joe Biden events as well, right? And so this kid didn't have a political agenda. He wanted just to. That's their backstory. That's the story they've created for this patsy, right? And so this thing is silly. Like, the whole thing is silly, what he just said about divine intervention. Because it's never been about the event, the attempt. It's always been about Trump's moment where he got up with fake blood streaming down his face and has pumped his fist in the air with the American flag behind him. That was the big moment. That was, did God create that moment? No, you guys did. Did God manufacture that moment so you could look like you did? A hero and a tough guy and badass, as even some of your, biggest detractors were commenting on you being badass and this being badass moment, right? And as a fake Christian, then why didn't God save Jesus? Why did God make Jesus suffer? Why did God make all of Jesus' disciples suffer? Why didn't he, make them have the same kind of, why didn't he take care of them the way he taking care of you, right? Like, this silly argument. He's supposed to be a Christian, and he's saying that he got better treatment and God saved his life because he wants God to save America. But he let them tack up his only son, which is what Christians believe Jesus is, on a cross, and then the disciples, look up the way the disciples died. Like some of the things I've never heard of, the torture and the abuse, the way they killed these guys. It was horrible. Like just for, their beliefs, right? I mean, they weren't doing anything. It was barely a religion then. It wasn't something that was sweeping across the globe and the nation, Rome or whatever. And they were just tortured and killed, all of them. And so, anyways, let's get back to it here. So this was something that showed up. I thought this came from Trump because it's got a check mark. And it's Donald J. Trump News, Real Trump News X. But it says here, it has no affiliations with the real Donald Trump. But, using his same profile picture they use in his Twitter, it looks like his account, right? This is Donald Trump's real account. We'll get into this in a moment. And so it looks like his real account, but it isn't. And they say bullshit things like this. Tom Hanks announced he will leave the United States if Donald Trump is elected president in 2024. And this is being shared all over the place, right? And he didn't say that. He didn't say that, right? It has 4.1 million views. And Tom Hanks didn't say, none of these guys are saying they're going to leave the country if Trump is elected. Now, they say it all the time, right? They pick this guy because of the, the stuff that he represents to the Cubies. But, it's just, you're not helping Trump by doing this. You're making it look like this came from Trump. And this will be used as a weapon against him. And it's just stupid. You're being stupid. Are you really a Trumper? Or are you there to sabotage him with this bullshit account, right? But not that Trump needs any help, because here, I was thrilled to be back in the beautiful Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots. 67 days now, we are going to win Pennsylvania. We're going to defeat comrade Kamala Harris. Now, I've said this before. She's not a frickin' communist. She's an opportunist like Donald Trump. She'll be whatever, all this stuff's about her now. And, there's enough there without having to lie about it. Just be honest. She doesn't care what she is, right? These are the veterans that came in that had to do with the thing that happened in Afghanistan. She's pushing this Gold Star family thing, right? But it's not, you don't need to lie, right? He's going into Pennsylvania with this piece of shit, Sean Hannity. All this kind of stuff, right? We grieve the senseless death of Israeli hostages. What about the Palestinian children? You don't grieve them? The one thing I liked about Trump is he didn't drone people. He didn't drone kids. And he didn't do any of these bullshit illegal wars. But he's pushing this one in Israel because he's completely owned by Israel, right? Horrifically, including a wonderful American citizen, Hirsch Goldberg Pollen, murdered by Hamas due to complete lack of American strength and leadership. Make no mistake about this. This happens because Comrade Harris and her crooked Joe Biden are poor leaders. It's dishonest to be saying that to your people. Because again, Kamala Harris sucks. She's a piece of shit. And so is Joe Biden. They're not communists, right? That's just something that, you guys know what a communist is, or it's just old school Republican bullshit, right? Okay, so this is part 2. I don't think I showed you anything from this. I don't think I watched this so much. I fast forwarded it when it was on the TV, so I got a little taste of everything. But there's, depressed Kamala.
Okay. Another issue, big one, is immigration. Mm-hmm. As Vice President, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries and
northern part of Central America.
The northern part of Central America that affects the southern border of the U.S. Mm-hmm. During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic.
She helped out. Somehow she did good work. It's crazy. Doesn't seem like it, but somehow the shit that she did was good somehow, even though it's a horrible issue for them. And, Trump did sabotage their bill. So it's a little bit on Trump, too, for being the same way that they screwed Trump with the, getting him to close down the economy during COVID, and then they ran against that, right? I mean, they're constantly screwing each other over, so that's part of it, right? But, her handling of it was a disaster. And then she never went there. And she said, I'd never been to Europe either.
Investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration.
This is where she blames Trump. And, it is partially Trump's fault. It's not like this is not true, but,
Issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill.
What he did? He got word of it? How did he? Was this bill secret? How did Donald Trump find out about it? Were you guys doing this, on the down low?
Would have contributed to securing our border, and because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill.
He's a bill killer.
A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the Border Patrol endorsed the bill. And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock, and 1,500 more agents would help them.
Do you think more people would help that situation? So I'm editing, right? Today's the September 4th. I'm editing this thing. And this is what Joe Biden was supposed to say during the debate. So Dana Bash was there for the Joe Biden debate. And she's now interviewing Kamala Harris with this really fluff piece, this puff piece type of interview. And she knows the talking points because all these pundits said when Joe Biden was asked about immigration, he was supposed to say this. But what Joe Biden said in the debate, well, let's show you a little clip of that here. Okay, so look at this is the debate. Remember the debate? That was so epic. It seems like ages ago, but it was so transformative. It was great TV. But he was asked about abortion first, which is an issue that he was winning on because 60% of Americans want abortion. And Trump is trying to backpedal on it right now because it's significant, right? It's a significant issue. And people are freaking, we've already covered this. And so he, instead of leaning into this strength, this is what he did instead.
President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they were all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide.
So first he babbles incoherently
on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered. And
so he didn't complete that thought, right? He was going to say that so many young women have been R'd, but he didn't complete the thought. And then he destroys his own argument and turns it into something that was his strength into Trump's strength.
And he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that. But here's the deal. There's
right? That's horrible. He's trying to dispute his talking point, but he completely failed. He turned this into an immigration issue, which is his weakness. And everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? This is a moment where you can see Trump's mic is, he's so confused and lost. He's speaking when he isn't supposed to. And his mic is still, his mic's been turned off. You'll see that in a second. But this was about immigration, and this is his fail here.
The issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers.
See, he was supposed to say, but Trump killed that. Like he was supposed to say what Kamala said. And everybody knew it because they were talking about it. I hadn't heard of it. I had never heard of it because I wasn't even watching this shit, before. But all these pundits were saying this, that he was supposed to say Trump killed it. They had prepared him. That was his talking point, right? And everybody knew it, including Dana Bash and droopy dog Jake Tappers. Like they knew what they're giving doing the debate questions, and they knew what he was supposed to say, right? But he couldn't deliver his talking point there. And so Kamala's delivering it. So this is why they got Kamala over him, because she's at least coherent enough to remember her talking points and the things that she's supposed to say in rebuttal. And Joe Biden failed. But Dana Bash knew that when she's doing the interview with Kamala, right? Like as a journalist, you know what their answer is going to be because you can see their stump speeches and they're putting out their disinformation, right? Their bullshit talking points. And if this was Trump, she would have a follow-up to, she would know what the person's going to say, like they're in some sort of court of law, and she would have some follow-up question that would dispute what Kamala's saying here, right? Not just for this, issue, but everything else. That's how you know this is a puff piece because she's letting her walk into her answers, right? She's putting these questions up on a tee, and then when the answer comes out, an answer that everyone knows is going to come out, oh yeah, Trump killed this bill, she doesn't have anything else to say about it, right? She just lets that be the truth. Like she asks the question, and Kamala gives the answer, and when Kamala's answer is the truth, and she doesn't dispute that. If this was a Republican, and certainly Trump, she'd have a rebuttal question, a question about his stock answer.
Would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl. Ask any community in America that has been devastated by fentanyl what passing that bill would have done to address their concern and a pain that they've experienced.
So you would push that legislation again. I just want to
Not
ask
only
about...
push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
Just one other...
No, she would sign it. She'd actually sign that bill, unlike Donald Trump, who would... Well, now Donald Trump would sign it because that's the kind of, border security person she is.
Question about something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have
laws, and I'm a laws person. I'm a lawyer, like a lawyer. Laws, it's in the word lawyer. Laws, I know about laws because, I used to make them with the swiping my pen.
Be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person.
Look at me here.
These
are the kind of faces that is the kind of what she's doing right here is why people don't like her.
Prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who
no way she did it. Transnational. Are you anti-trans? Is that what you're saying?
Trafficking guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the...
Go ahead, give her the answer. Give her a multiple choice. Just don't ask the question. Let her kind of wing it. Give her a couple of different options that she can choose from.
Information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and...
No, she never ran for president in a Democratic primary. I mean, she's talking about back then she did, yeah. But she didn't do it now.
Confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward.
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed.
What values? I didn't have them before. I don't have them now.
You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real.
It's real. It's not some bullshit thing we made to make money. It's a real thing that's happening.
That it is an urgent matter.
It's urgent, and because it's real, it's got to be urgent.
To which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time.
Downtime, because we don't want deadlines that don't have a fixed time. We don't have a deadline like, when's the deadline? I don't know, sometime in the future. We want to have fixed time deadlines. That's what I'm going to bring in. When I say I have a deadline, I'm going to set a specific time for that deadline to be reached. It'll be like a deadline. When I have a deadline, it's going to be like an actual deadline.
We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example.
That's one example of a deadline.
Value has not changed.
My values have not changed. I still don't have any.
Value around what we need to do to secure our border. That value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations.
Yeah, we heard that already. You know who else did that? Not Trump.
My values have not changed. So that is the reality of it. And 4 years of being vice president, I'll tell you, one of the aspects to your point is traveling the country extensively. I mean, I'm here in Georgia. I think somebody told me 17 times since I've been vice president in Georgia alone.
She's been there a lot in Georgia. She goes there all the time.
I believe it is important to build consensus. And it is important to find a common place of understanding of where we can actually solve problems.
On that note, you had a lot of Republican speakers at the convention. Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
Anyone in mind?
Yes, I would. No one in particular.
Donald Trump. I think I'm going to make Donald Trump vice president. I'm going to get rid of this bag of shit over here, and I'm going to put Trump in as vice president.
Never mind, we got 68 days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before the horse, but I would.
Yeah, you are. You're already picking people.
I think it's really important. I have spent my career inviting diversity of opinion. I think it's important to have people at the table when some of the most important decisions are being made that have different views, different experiences. And I think it would be to the benefit of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a Republican.
I do. I think that's a good idea.
I want to ask you about your opponent, Donald Trump.
Okay.
I was a little bit surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes.
Look at her face.
Questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any
same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Let's talk about some foreign policy issues that would be on your plate if you become commander-in-chief. President Biden has tried unsuccessfully to end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza.
And it's not going to happen. Biden says he's going to give them an ultimatum. It's not going to happen. Israeli people are protesting because there's no ceasefire. They're blaming Netanyahu. And, he wants a land grab, and I don't think it's going to happen for him at this point. I mean, I don't know how they're going to get it done, right? Like, how are they going to annex that part of Palestine and then the West Bank as well? And this is it for them. Like, I don't think they're going to get another chance.
He's been doing it for months and months, along with you. Would you do anything differently? For example, would you...
What do you mean along with you? Along with you, you were there. Like, I bet you sat in the back of the room, and once in a while you just raise your hand and say something because you just want to be on record that you were there.
Withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel. That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocally
supporting Israel. Are you unequivocally supporting Israel's right to defend itself by invading a country with no army that's and killing and murdering 40,000 people, 20,000 of them kids?
Equivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But let's take a step back. October 7, 1,200 people were massacred.
Okay, so those 1,200 people, they have, how many Palestinians have to die before that's equaled out? How many Palestinians, and again, none of these Palestinians, I mean, especially the kids, had anything to do with this event, right? I mean, you know, they didn't, like, obviously. They're innocent civilians.
Many young people who were simply attending a music festival.
No way.
Women were horrible.
So innocent, right? So Israel has, you know, bullied the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank, and they're in a, you know, open-air prison, which, you know, most people who've been there understand this, right? Anybody with some objectivity. So these people have been completely bullied and, you know, abused by the Israeli government. And if they did anything, let's say this thing's real, which I don't believe it is, right? I believe that the Hamas is an Israeli asset. You know, but let's say they acted out in some way. Well, what you have is proportional response, right? Which is, you know, if they killed 1,400 people, then you'd kill 1,400 people, right? But that would be, if you look at the beginning, you know, since the beginning of this conflict, it's like something like 300,000 Palestinians have died, and it's like under 50,000 Israelis. And so, you know, there's no proportional response. It's like when America went to Iraq, and America killed over 1 million Iraqis, and 5,000 troops died, right? So, like, it's not proportional, right? It's not, you know, one person's the bully, right? One country's the bully.
Horribly raped. As I said then, I say today, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. And we have got to get a deal done. We were in Doha. Mm-hmm. We have to get a deal done. This war must end.
And in the meantime,
and we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out. I've met with the families of the American hostages. Let's get the hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
But no change in policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No, we have to get a deal done. Dana, we have to get a deal done.
Just a deal. We have to make a deal.
You look at the significance of this to the families, to the people who are living in that region. A deal is not only the right thing to do to end this war, but will unlock so much of what must happen next. I remain committed since I've been on October 8th.
October 8th, I said, let's get a deal.
To what we must do to work toward a two-state solution.
Yeah, that's not happening. There's no two-state solution. And, like, just come out and say it. Israel does not want anything called Palestine to exist and really doesn't acknowledge Palestine as a country. And so it's an open-air prison, and they are just expanding they've been grabbing land since they got the, you know, original brokered state by the UN, and just, you know, stop lying about it, just like whatever. Okay, so that's the end of their interview. So this is some sort of union thing. These people have labor. She has union here. More scrubs and less suits? What is she talking about? I don't know who this person is. Maybe a union person.
And you remember that Kamala Harris cast those deciding votes in the Senate to save millions of workers' pensions?
No way. She did that? That's crazy. And so then JoJo McGillicuddy's going to come up here. Here he goes. Look at him go. Here we go. Look at him come out here. Let's go back a little bit more. Keith Olbermann.
The kitchen table. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Brothers and sisters, please join me to welcome our true friends, the President and Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
You been drinking, bro? Look at him. Look at him come out. Look at him come out. Look at this motherfucker here. Look at him go. Woo. Look at him go. Look at him waddle on out there. Let him go. Oh, there's about 15 people there. It's not very loud. What are you doing? Get away from that kid, you groping MMFer. Run up there. Yeah, show him. So show him your stories and shuffle.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Woo. Right, let's get move forward here. Let's see what.
Force One today represents the unit that's been with me since the beginning of my career. They're not that old, but since I was a 29-year-old kid. I want to thank Liz Schuler, the AFL-CIO.
CIO or CEO, whatever. Let's move forward here.
Job in American politics. Everybody knows where you live and they think you can solve all the problems. You don't have enough money. But I tell you one thing, I'm the first president ever. I used to be a county official when I was 26 years old. And it always bothered me that the federal government would send money to the state to be distributed to the county. Well, what the hell is the state going to send it to the county for? All the state reps need the money. But guess what? Under my administration, it goes straight to the county.
That's what. Lean in, buddy.
And one of my best friends. My name's Joe Biden. I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Did you say that randomly? Like now it's just he's lost it?
Bobby Casey's been a great friend. His dad was a great friend as well. And by the way, we grew up 3 blocks from one another. 3 blocks. And they still worry about us by showing up. And guess what? I was on North Washington Avenue. He was in Adams. Guess what? They renamed North Washington Avenue down where I live Biden Way.
Boom. It's got a name. Biden Way. Does it lead to the dump?
Worth the effort. Bob will make sure we get reelected again. And while we couldn't be here, I want to thank his partner in the Senate, John Fetterman. But,
woo! Fetterman's the best. Woo!
If you're in a foxhole, you want Fetterman in there with you.
Yeah, so you could use him as a shield. Just in case a grenade comes out, you can push Fetterman on it, and his massive Fetterman smash body can block the shrapnel from hitting you.
He couldn't be here today, but guess what? He sent the best part of the family, Giselle. She's here.
Yeah, she's the witch. She casts a spell on you guys.
Let me just say, it means so much to be with a true friend, the Vice President and the next great President of the United States of America. Come on.
He's just babbling. He's not, he's not making as many gaffes yet. I don't know. I'm not going to watch this whole thing. We'll go through a little bit more. He knows he's done, right? Like he's reconciled that he's not going to be president again. He knows this is it for him. And he's got till January, but the election will determine, there might be world events that happen where he'll be pushed to the forefront. But like when you retire, you see this, you just fall apart. You see people fall apart all the time. Like if you're retiring, you better have like something that you are passionate about doing. Like you need some kind of work. Like, my dad was like, oh, he's just going to watch TV and play golf, right? And he fell apart physically, mentally. He lost his mind. He hated his job. He's a guidance counselor. Couldn't wait to retire, but he didn't have anything to replace it with, right? As much as he hated his job, when he retired, he had no purpose. And like, he really didn't have much of a purpose before. I guess he was pretty good at his job to some extent. But he didn't have a relationship with his kids. He didn't really like golf. He sucked at it. And, you just get worse at it. And so, like, there's just nothing to do. He didn't have any friends, wasn't social, was kind of obnoxious, kind of an a-hole. Like, no, my mom and him split up for a little bit. Like he just fell apart. He was losing it. He like lost his mind, and physically fell apart. And you see this all the time because you need work. You need some purpose, and old people don't have it, right? We don't. Old people are. You have your job. You try from your job, and nobody wants to hear from you. Once in a while you have a good relationship with your kids, which is very seldom. They come and visit you a couple times a year. You see the grandkids, but you're not really doing anything. You don't have anything really, and you just you don't have any reason to get out of bed. You don't have any goals. You're not really prepared to die. You're not prepared to die, and he's already kind of in that state, and he was already falling apart. It's going to accelerate. It's going to accelerate now because of the this whole thing. And they just want him to go away. That's the other thing. Like, he wouldn't have won the election. He's a reminder that the Democrats scammed the American people and pretended the senile guy was okay, and he wasn't. Like, he's had dementia, Parkinson's for at least the past 4 years. And with him deteriorating, is just going to remind people that they've been lied to. And he burns down Kamala Harris. Now, Pennsylvania likes him because, this whole Scranton thing he does. So they're rolling him out here. But that's going to be it. They're not going to show up together very much in different states, different battleground states. And he's not going to have a purpose. No one's going to pay attention to this guy. Like, he's forgotten already. Look at him. Where am I? What did I just say?
Look, folks, I come from two neighborhoods where it's not hard to say the word union. But you know what? The fact of the matter is, an awful lot of politicians have a trouble saying union, like working people. Guess what? I'm not one of them. Neither is Kamala.
Chicken butt. So he says, guess what, all the time.
We know the simple truth. Wall Street did not build America.
Who did? Who built it?
The middle class built America.
Middle class,
and unions built the middle class.
And unions, so unions.
That's a fact.
That's a fact. Look at Kamala.
And by the way, that is not a slogan, that's a fact. I asked the Treasury Department to do a study, and it shows that when unions do well, all workers in America do better. That's a fact.
It's a fact.
That's a fact.
It's a fact. It's a fact. Guess what?
It's the biggest reason why our economy is the strongest economy in the world today, without question, because of unions.
It's unions. Unions do that. Okay, unions did do that because, unions are corrupt. I don't know what unions are right now, like compared to when I grew up. Unions were more powerful and, big thing. But in terms of like what unions did back whenever was they helped people get a reasonable living wage. But now is the union, they do all kinds of things that make it impossible for American companies to employ union workers because it's so much cheaper to go overseas, right? The unions are creating outsourcing, which defeats the whole purpose, all of it, right? And unions, they take money from the union dues, and they're kind of screwing the workers to some extent because of pushing up labor costs so much that their jobs disappear, and then they take their cut, right? And so again, I don't have a real opinion about unions. Like, I know at some point they've been helpful for when when people are making basically not living wages, right? And so they've been helpful, but now it's like this that ship has sailed.
My dad, like many of his generation, going into World War II, wasn't able to go to college. My dad was a really well-read guy, and he was always engaged. And he'd come home from work before he'd go back and close up the shop and for dinner. And the dinner was the place where we had discussions and incidentally ate. My dad taught me. My dad would say this all the time. Remember, Joey.
Joey, just don't do that to your sister.
And I give you my word to this.
He's giving his word to this. Like, this is not the normal bullshit plagiarizing lying that I do. This is true.
It's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about the community. It's about your place in the community.
You know, you're making it sound like you said something you haven't. I've heard him say that probably 10 times. You've probably heard me make comments about him saying that like over 10 videos where he says that a job's more than a paycheck. It's about dignity and all these other things. He says it all the time. Like we've all heard it. You look at it like it's something brand new.
And it's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it.
You call your kids honey?
That's why.
So you go up to your kids and call your boys honey. Or your daughter. Like, was that before or after you shower with her?
That's why Kamala and I are so proud. So proud of the greatest job creation record of any president in a single term in American history.
Woo! Okay, that was after they closed down the economy.
$16 million new jobs so far.
No way. Okay, Joe, let's move forward here.
Real, it affects people's lives. We're going to let that son of a gun do that again?
Who's that son of a gun you speak of? No, we're not.
We made a lot of progress, and Kamala and I are going to build on that progress, and she's going to build on it. I'll be on the sidelines, but I'll do everything I can to help.
I'll be like, a creepy neighbor peeking through the fence and seeing what's going on. Every once in a while, I'll pop by and, I'll sit in Kamala's chair. I'll call her VP, and, I'll pretend that or I won't pretend. I'll believe that I'm the president because my brain will be gone, and they'll have to usher me out. It'll be like that.
But look, I'm not joking when I say this is not a joke. When I said this when I was running 20.
Look, this is going to be serious. Don't laugh at this, you guys, because it's going to be serious.
A lot of people didn't believe me. You did, but didn't believe me. It's all at risk because of This is not a joke. When I said this when I was running 2020, a lot of people didn't believe me. You did, but didn't believe me. All at risk because of Donald Trump. Literally. With a stroke of the pen, he can get rid of a lot of this. And do you think this guy gives a damn about your pensions?
No.
I'm serious. Do you think he loses?
No, we thought you were joking. No, say it again. So we can say, no, this time we'll respond like we believe that what you're saying that's serious and not a joke.
In an instant of sleep over it. Do you think he cares about all the work you do every day and how hard it is?
Yes. I mean, no.
He cares about good paying jobs for hard-working people who built this economy?
Yeah, no.
Hell. He regards picket lines. He'd rather cross one than walk one.
Yeah, that's so.
But I have no problem.
He's a scab.
Walking the picket line.
He likes to walk the picket line. He's been known to walk the picket line quite a bit. This is so great.
But I have no problem walking the picket line.
He has no problem walking the picket line. He doesn't mind walking the picket line with you guys.
Never have, neither, nor does Kamala.
Kamala is the best at walking the picket line. That's why they call her knee pads. Like, there's no one better on the picket line than Kamala Harris. Like, she can service the pickets one at a time, two at a time, whatever it takes. She'll walk them. She'll get on her knees. She'll do whatever it takes, right? She's the best at the picket line.
We'll always walk alongside you. Workers built this country. And again, that's not hyperbole. That's a fact.
It's a fact. It's fact. That's a joke.
These are facts.
These are facts.
Campaign slogans.
It's not slogans. It's not talking points.
This. 5 years ago, I began my campaign for president right here in Pittsburgh. I said one of the reasons I was running was to rebuild the backbone and spine of America.
Yeah, exactly. And save the soul. And also because of what happened in Charlottesville. All those reasons.
The middle class, the
Cool.
working class folks.
Yeah.
Not a joke. Think about it.
Not a joke. How many times are you going to say not a joke?
Think about it. Well, 5 years later, we've done just that.
Yeah, we did. The thing is that most people think America's tanking. America, because of the prices and inflation. And they've tried to artificially push back at inflation, whatever power they have to make it look good. I mean, they're still, some debate over who's going to be chosen here, right? At least, neither one of them's been told yet, yeah, we're choosing the other guy or whatever's happening. But he's running like he had a great presidency, and Kamala can't run on that shit, right? She's got to run on, she's going to change a lot of his shit. Well, it won't be as bad as when he was president. And, so this is counterproductive for her.
I'm back in Pittsburgh on Labor Day again with a simple message. As we look at this election, I spent my whole career believing in unions. I'm not joking when I say that.
He's not joking. That's a real thing. It's not joking. Again, all these things, they sound like jokes, but they're not. So he has to clarify. These are absolutely not jokes when I say them, even though they sound like jokes. Because, I'm not very believable. I'm a lying piece of shit. So I got to distinguish between things that you guys might find laughable and say they're not jokes.
I'm honored to be considered the most pro-union president ever.
Yup. This guy right here said it. He delivered it. Yup. That was his one job.
By the way, remember all the talk, Biden got elected and he's going to do a planned economy. We're going to collapse and there's going to be all this caving in. Interest rates are going to go through the ceiling. Come on, man.
Come on, man. Come on.
I'm here to tell you, it's about increasing the strength of your unions, is what it's all about. If you care about hard-working people, just give them a fair shot. Everyone in America deserves a fair shot. A fair shot.
No guaranteed fair shot. It's a fair shot to lose. There's going to be no future for your kids, and the economy's going to collapse, and inflation's going to get worse, and we're going to put you guys in Agenda 31 housing, all that kind of stuff. But guess what? You'll get a fair shot before we do all that shit. No joke. I'm telling you, it's not funny. It's a real thing.
If you care about the dignity of work, and I mean it matters, the dignity of work, the way you're treated, the decency. Yeah. I remember when my great-grandfather was only the second Catholic elected statewide to the state Senate here in Pennsylvania. And I remember they talked about when they're running against him in 1906, they said, guess what?
Chicken butt.
They said, he's a Molly Maguire. You know what a Molly Maguire was?
Nope. Explain it to us. Tell us what malarkey is, too, because it happened so long ago, we don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well,
you're so old. Talking about your grandfather is like talking about stuff that happened in the frickin' Dark Ages. What are you talking about? The 1900s, right? We're talking about, over 100 years ago? There's been all this development since then in computers. People don't even know, who Nixon is. What the fuck you doing here, bro?
Those of you don't. Molly Maguire, back in the old days, when we Irish and the Catholics came, and then the Poles and others that were Catholic, when they came to the United States of America in the beginning of the 1840s, and late 1840s, they made their way down into Pennsylvania. A lot of them, and there's a tier in the coal mines. Those guys who got there last ended up being the last people in the coal mines. But a lot of the English owned the coal mines, and what they did was they'd really beat the hell out of the mostly Catholic population that was in the mines. Not a joke. But there was a group.
It sounds pretty racist.
They're called the Molly Maguires. And the Molly Maguires, if they find out the foreman who was taking advantage of an individual, and they
What do you mean taking advantage of an individual?
They kill him. Not a joke. And they bring his body up.
Not a joke. They actually kill people at the body.
Him on the doorstep of his family.
Whoa. So, is that a good thing?
Kind of crude. But I got to admit, they accused my great-grandfather of being a model where he wasn't. But we were so damn disappointed.
He wasn't a murderer, murdered some foreman in a coal mine and dragged him up and dropped him off at his doorstep? That was so fucked up. It's not a joke. Guess what? I called him, but before, let's go back to the original thing you said about Molly Maguire here.
I remember when my great-grandfather was only the second Catholic elected statewide to the state Senate here in Pennsylvania. And I remember they talked about when they're running against him in 1906, they said, guess what? They said,
Chicken butt.
he's a Molly Maguire. You know what a Molly Maguire was?
Is it somebody that would, the Catholics who were getting their asses kicked by the Protestants that were in the coal mines getting black lung and dying from fucking that horrible job, and they were getting their asses kicked, and when a foreman would take advantage of a worker, which I don't know what that means, buggering or something, these guys would kill him and drop him on the doorstep. Is that what your grandfather used to do?
Kind of crude. But I got to admit, they accused my great-grandfather of being a model where he wasn't. But we were so damn disappointed. No. That's a joke.
That wasn't a joke. I wish I had played that all the way through the first time. We were so disappointed.
But I got to admit, they accused my great-grandfather of being a model where he wasn't. But we were so damn disappointed. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. Look.
No, it wasn't a joke. You're confused. Why'd you throw that fucking weird-ass story in there? Nobody needs to hear that shit, right? It happened so many years ago. Like, what are you towing, right? Do you think people are going to walk away from this? They're like, what the fuck was that guy talking about? The Molly Maguire shit. Like, what was that, right? And then he faded off in the end and said, we were so disappointed. What? What are you talking about? That he didn't kill people and, in the coal mine? No, that's a joke. How is that a fucking joke? Like, they're laughing at you like, what?
It's about the dignity of work. It's about how you're treated. And when I met with the IBW, I started off this last campaign first, I said, there's two things I'm asking of me. And I said, two things I'm asking of you. One, you've got to open up your unions to more women.
Woo!
Not a joke.
Not a joke. I said that shit, right? Like the other thing about my grandfather being a Molly Maguire, that was a joke. I don't know. I don't even know what that one thing was, but this thing isn't.
And two, to more minorities. You've done both that.
Why aren't you applying for that?
Guess what?
Chicken butt.
Instead of having support of 30% of the American leaders, now we're 65% of the American leaders support the American Union movement.
Kama's like, somebody fucking get the hook out here and get this motherfucker off the stage. Okay, I just want to go back to this thing where he said, guess what, and then said Molly Maguire thing, right? Because he said, guess what, 6 or 7 times that I saw. Like, I only watched about 20% of his speech here. And he said, guess what, all the time. It's, it's a verbal, thing that he's doing. But when you say, guess what, there should be at least an outside chance that the person knows, has a chance of guessing what you're talking about, right? And at least they should be familiar with the subject better. Like, these are union people, so maybe a few of them, the older ones, have heard about Molly Maguire. But this is a national talk, and it's a political talk, and, it's an event. And this Molly Maguire thing, the majority of Americans and most of the people there didn't hear about it. So he says, guess what? No one's going, oh, Molly Maguire. You're going to tell them a weird story about your grandfather, Molly Maguire, and them accusing him of being a murderer, right? Like, it's just so freaking weird, right? And it's because he's broken down mentally. He has one event. Like, as far as I know, this is going to be his only event. Like, he's got a connection in Pennsylvania because he grew up there. He does well in Pennsylvania. And so they had to roll him out for something. They couldn't just disappear the guy altogether. But, they have a couple months to go. He might show up a few more events, right? But this is one of his only events. He's not doing anything else. Just sitting around the White House, in his Depends diaper, whatever it is, right? Whatever brand he uses. And they roll him out here, and they're like, where are you going with this? Like, why did you bring this story up, right? Anyways, let's get back to it. Okay, so she's going to bring her up here.
Picked me as vice president because he knew I could be president. Well, I know she'll be a good president. I know it.
Point. Where are you pointing there, bro? Where are you pointing there?
I've watched it when all the experts, foreign and domestic policy, would give us advice. Then we'd sit alone in a room.
Grab that hand. Grab that hand with that cold clammy claw them.
And she has a backbone like a ramrod.
Like a ramrod. No way. We're gonna miss you, Joe. Like, what am I gonna do without you, bro?
And she has the moral compass of a saint. This woman knows what she's doing.
Moral compass of a saint. I mean, you know, she knows her way around knee pads. Like, she knows what she's doing. I'm telling you. Like, you know.
I promise you, if you elect Kamala Harris as president, it'll be the best decision you will have ever made.
Yeah, that's it. Like, you know, you're not your spouse, not your, you know, your choice of spiritual worship, not, you know, the home you bought. No, Kamala Harris being the president, that'll be your best decision you ever make in your entire life. It's all downhill. You never make another great decision like that.
And Kamala believes as I do. The unions are the spine of this economy.
And she's got one like a ramrod.
She'll be a historic pro-union president. So, folks, we got one more job to do together. Let me ask you, are you ready to fight?
Wait, you got one more job, and after that we can all just go? Like, we got to elect her and it's over, we can just relax and then I'll retire from life? Yeah.
Are you ready to win?
Yeah.
Are you ready to elect Kamala Harris, our next president of the United States of America?
No. Oh, he's going to kiss her on the forehead. He's going to do that fucking clammy-ass frickin' ghoul lips. Why doesn't he have a piece of plastic? Why is there no plastic here?
And in the process, are you ready to make Donald Trump a loser again?
Yeah, woo. Yeah,
I've never been more optimistic about America because we have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. There's nothing, I mean this from the bottom of my heart, there's nothing beyond our capacity. Nothing. When we do it together. And that means elect my friend, our great Vice President, President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Oh, there we go. There you go. Give him a standing O. He rocked it. Like that Molly McGuire shit. That was awesome. What does it say there at the girl's shirt? Look, she's doing a selfie. She was kind of having weird faces the whole time. Right here. Look at this guy. This is the guy that yelled the thing before. This dude wants a high five. He's not fucking going to get it. He's not getting... Oh, no, she got one. She got one. What about that other dude? But look at this high five. He does this thing where he grabs the hand here. I think it's the worst high five ever. Like he's doing like a Lambeau leap here, right? So this woman, he's gonna give her a high five. Instead of giving her a high five, he's gonna grab her hand. He's snoozling people there. Boom. Then he grabs her hand, holds her hand, and then look, boom. He holds her hand. And that's real freaking weird. And that guy, you miss that kid. The kid's shaking his head. He didn't get one. He didn't give this kid. He's all bummed out. I didn't get one. I didn't get to touch that clammy-ass, frickin' creep-ass claw as his. The clammy, cold, frickin' dead hand is. Woo!
Thank you, Joe!
Joe. Thank you, Joe. Jeez, Molly McGuire. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Woo! People are coming in on their day off for this shit. This is Monday. They get an extra day off, and here they are watching this crap.
It is good to be in the House of Labor.
Yeah, it is. You know, I never was in labor myself. I mean, I never worked in labor. I did work at McDonald's for a little bit. Then that proved to be false. But I never had a baby because I was in labor. You know, but I like labor. When you guys do it.
And it is good to be back at IBW Local 5. And can we please give it up again for our president, Joe Biden?
Yeah, boom, again.
have to tell the brothers and sisters of labor that you really get to know somebody when you're in the middle of a fight.
That's right. That's right.
When times are hard.
When times are, it's right.
When the forces are mighty. When people don't believe something can get done and they have 1,000 excuses for why it can't get done. And I have spent more time with this extraordinary human being.
This guy, when he was, was changing his diapers and all that shit that I had to go through.
When the cameras were not in the room, when the stakes were high, when the heat was intense. And Joe Biden has always stood with the workers of America and labor unions of America. Always.
Always. He just always does. Let's move forward here. Not going back. Not going back. But you realize that she's part of the current administration, right? She's running like a challenger, not an incumbent.
One of the ways we're going to guarantee we don't go back is that we remember, right? It is important to remember what that was and what it is.
And what it will be.
Remember, as president, Donald Trump blocked overtime benefits for millions of workers.
Boo! Okay, let's see how they wrap this thing up here.
Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America?
Yeah.
Are we ready to fight for it?
Yeah.
And when we fight, we win.
Yeah.
God bless you. God bless America.
The way they butchered that shit. Look at them go, woo! All right, there she is with Joe. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this video up here. I'm already starting the next video. And there's a part where Peter Doocy's asking the press secretary about Kamala Harris getting a southern accent in the middle of the speech. And it's pretty bad. So I'll lead off the next video with that. Some other little highlights from her. She's just a poor public speaker. I mean, she doesn't have dementia, so I guess that's something. It's an upgrade, right? It's definitely an upgrade. But anyways, let's wrap this one up here, and I'll continue on with the next video. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse. And the Ascension, everyone have a blessed day, and be grateful.